Victor,
I said, yeah.
I'm using this on you as well, this time.
Well.
Using this on you as well, FYI.
That was.
You know, so how do you-
30 minutes. Yeah.
We're just doing it all. Well, the thing is, the crew. It's to recruit and we could manage it.
No, he's not.
We're trying to find this back out. We're like, I was like, wait.
And I know there's some feedback, whether I get it, we're all gonna get some shit.
Figure it out.
Practice is good. That's her giving leaders.
It looks like a pretty,
Money never knows. Rough rider.
I think that, yeah.
What I saw.
Just to move a point. You know, it's. I don't want to say they can just be-
The John.
Yeah, I can do it. Put it on the speakers.
Oh, just. He didn't want to share it. It's pretty talented. Yeah.
They do have this group, but it's. Was you a part of this?
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. That's
Well, I had her.
one of my pet.
No.
That's okay.
Whatever you guys. Do I want to do it? Yes.
And you to be that best. No. Like, no. Yeah.
So. I don't.
Your big clock. Your big clock in the corner.
Okay, I guess we're late, 7 o'clock, let's call this meeting to order.
Hard to see the clock.
All right, so pledge. All right, pledge allegiance to the flag, of the United States of America, and to the republic which is one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
All right. Nancy Rondell.
Here.
Jamie Melky.
Here.
Matt Vera.
Here.
John Cups.
Here.
John Leo is, but we do have a quorum.
Okay. Citizens comment tonight? Anything that's not on the agenda? No? No? Good. Being on the computer?
For those on Zoom, if you ever have a comment to make, please raise the Zoom hand.
Quiet there. All right. Consent agenda, any issues at the table?
If there's any public comment about it.
Public comment, yeah. You guys? Everything looks good?
I'll make a motion.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Amy Melky,
Yes.
John Cobb's,
Yes.
Nancy Rondell.
Yes.
Matt Rivera.
Yes.
Motion carried.
And the meat of the meeting.
There we go.
All right.
All right, the first item on the agenda is the boardwalk bids evaluation and selection. And just to remind council and the public, the way we do this for public comment now, the new way we have it is that I'll present the memo to council. Council opens it up to the public for comment, public comment, and then council discusses the issue at that point. So just a reminder of the citizen comment rules. All right, so the boardwalk, I was gonna say the background is last year, but this has been going on since 2016, 17. So we've been discussing the boardwalk for many years, but most recently, we put out the boardwalk to bid in January based on the updated design and fundraising goal of expected cost of around $600,000. We received 6 bids for the boardwalk from a variety of bidders, all within the state, I believe. And so before I go over our evaluation, scoring and selection process, I just want to remind council and the public of our bid selection process. So our goal in our purchase and procurement policy is to secure at least 3 bids on projects that are over $40,000. So if we're bidding on a project that's over $40,000, like this one is $600,000, we aim to get 3 bids. If we didn't get 3 bids, council could say, you know what, we want to try again for more bids, and we could reject the bids and open up the process again. In this case, we got 6 bids. That was no problem. Then city staff evaluates those bids based on 4 categories that are equally weighted. Those 4 categories give equal weight to price of the cost of the bid, the proximity of the company and the subcontractors to the city limits, general experience of the companies, as well as their experience dealing with similar types of projects and construction, and then a demonstration or familiarity of understanding of the project and the city's needs in the project. So we weigh all those equally. Generally, we have 3 city staff who score these projects individually: the city clerk, treasurer, DPW director, and myself, city manager. We do those independently of each other, and then we average our scores, and then we make a recommendation to council to go with the highest score. Council does not have to go with the highest score if they feel in some instances that they want to put more weight on one item versus another. So if they weigh price and cost more than they did experience, or vice versa, they might want to take that into consideration. Well, that is our process here. And so when we got our bids back, we received our bids from the 6 companies. We had from Cups Masonry, John Henry, Power Construction, Spence Bros, three Tri-County, and Woodley Homes. Woodley Homes came in at the lowest bidder with $526,094. We scored the bids based on the criteria. We did extensive background checks, reference checks. We called former employers, we called subcontractors, just a variety of people we called and contacted, did a lot of research. And the scores are as follows, with the top 2 being Cups with 109 and Woodley Homes at 107. It's a very close scoring process. It's as far as scoring wise, it's just like neck and neck. So it was very extensive process that we did here. So I recommend that council kind of discusses the qualifications of the bidders and probably look into more about the proposed construction methods and experience of the contractors. If council can make a decision, Benchmark Engineering suggested that they could have an interview process with the bidders, or the top two bidders. In this case, was Cups Masonry and Woodley Homes. And I think both of them are here today, so you could ask them questions here if you want to gauge that before making a decision. The second part of this, though, is after we choose, or after council chooses a contractor, we got to keep in mind is our financing aspect of this. We have approximately $390,000, right, Rachel? Yeah, about $390,000 in donations. We are in communication with a couple of donors about further donations, and we plan to continue fundraising through construction of the project. So we're not going to stop that no matter what bid we select. We did actually have a conversation with a member of the Harbor Springs Boardwalk Preservation Group that did say that they were get us the amount of money they have later this month. So we'll know more about that later. So how much money the city must contribute? So really we're getting down to this is because we want to know how much money the city should contribute from our city funds based on, so we can help based on our needs, and we can help ourselves plan, right? We don't know if we're going to get the Sparks grant. That's still out there. We applied for that back in December, I believe, and we still haven't heard back from the DNR. So we're going to assume we're not getting that, but we may, but we're just going to go off this assumption we're not getting anything from there. So basically, I've looked at it with Nick. We looked approximately, we could probably use about $90,000 from our surplus general fund revenue this year that we were going to earmark for the boardwalk anyway, the boardwalk project. And I say $90,000 because we have another item that came up was furnaces in the police building that broke down. So we need to use some of that money for that. But we also could probably get some money from our streets fund, up to $50,000. I prefer not to use money from our streets fund because we are need to save up for future projects. We don't have any in the next planned big projects in the next couple of years. We might have the Judd Hill Wall, but we prefer not to touch that. But if we have to, if we can't make it with fundraising, we'll go that direction. So depending on what contractor the council selects, the city would probably need anywhere between $45,000 and $100,000 in donations on top of what we have. So that's my spiel there. So
okay.
And I guess before we give it to public comment, I think John, you probably should choose yourself.
Yeah.
Public.
Yeah. Why don't you go sit out there? In case you want to ask me a question. Don't leave the room. All right. Anyone have any public comment? Get going on this? Yes, sir.
Is Woodley anywhere local?
Woodley is, you want me to answer those questions now or you want to wait? I can-
He's from Petoskey.
Yeah, he's asking, he's done work, and he's here, so he can, if council wants to ask those questions, but yeah, Chuck is, Woodley is based in Petoskey, he's done work in Harbor Springs area.
Okay.
Yeah.
Chuck over in the corner there. Yeah. Yes.
Kathy Marshall, Sergeant Street. This may be a dumb question, so. But, I was just looking through the individual bids and the different line items. And the only thing that I was curious about was some lines, the dollar amounts.
Yeah.
For the individual lines are radically different. So I'm assuming you guys are comfortable with all this and you've asked questions.
So the reason is because on one hand, there's proposed different construction methods. So when there's different construction methods, they may need more or less from different line items. Also, different companies get their materials from different places. Some of the larger companies like Spence Bros tend to have more like stabilization and mobilization fees in general, where some of the smaller companies don't. But we are comfortable with the price based on some of the proposed construction methods. We are pretty. And another line item you might have saw $0 for Cups Masonry under lumber, but because that was calculated in the lumber for the entire project, not just for the viewing platform. So yeah, we did look into that. We're comfortable with the different differences in the price lines.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? No, Anna?
I sent for Victor about, Deanna Mulder, 372 West Summit. I probably sent Victor 40 questions today and, I think got very thorough answers and I went through the bids. Not much left to chance. One thing that, I'm still just a little questioning is, we started out with helical piles being specified. And then Victor reminded me that John Leo had suggested that we also get prices for using wood with concrete sonotubes and to see if the prices were lower. But that's not really quite how the bids came back. You know, it might have been useful. And I don't know if it still could be done to have the contractors provide price for helical and price for concrete. Because right now it's hard to tell if it's apples to apples and like Victor said that he spoke to Joe and Joe was equally comfortable with both options. But I just wonder if maybe he's a little more comfortable with helical and that's how he spec'd it in the first place.
I can respond to that.
Well, we'll wait for that. Yeah, we'll have that answer there, but we originally went, I think as you said, we were gonna do a helical piling, but we were worried about price and material. So we wanted to leave the option for the contractor to put concrete in there in case there was any issue there. Some contractors indicated they will do helical piling. One said they could do a mix of both, and then others are just doing concrete. Joe, I don't know if Joe's on, but maybe he can answer this later if council wants him to, but he did say he really didn't have a preference either or in this case. He's comfortable with both. But there may be, there may be advantages to helical pilings in some cases versus concrete and vice versa. There's pros and cons to both, but I don't think they were substantial enough for Joe to have a worry about that.
I'm sorry, who is Joe?
Joe O'Neill is this engineer, city's benchmark, yes. But council, we can ask that later if Joe's online. So he's on there, so.
Anyone else? Raise their hand on the computer.
Anyone on Zoom?
Your expertise.
Of my expertise in boardwalk. I had one of the same questions. I'd like to know that if Joe has a thought about the two different, I guess that would be called the foundation of it.
Yeah.
If, I think he said he's comfortable with both, but what's the advantage, disadvantage? I don't understand.
Joe, you're online. If you heard Nancy's question, they're asking if we could hear your take on if there's an advantage or disadvantage going with helical pilings versus concrete, and what your preference is, or if you don't have a preference. Joe? Hey, we can hear you now, Joe.
That sounds a little better. Do you want a comparison of the two foundations? Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, comparison between using helical pilings and concrete.
I don't really have a preference for either one. I think they're both good foundations. I think they each have their advantages.
Can you talk a little bit about those advantages?
Well, I think the advantage of the concrete is you're less susceptible to running into rocks or that sort of thing down a little deeper. That with pilings, it's a little more unknown the deeper you go. Having said that, the pilings have the advantage, if you get them in good and deep, of resisting lateral force. And to offset that on the concrete design, we've actually got a cross bracing set up. So overall, I think they're both good foundations.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
No. Wait a second. Do you have a question?
I can't hear.
I've got a question for
Mr. Woodley.
Woodward.
Pardon?
His last name's Woodward, so
Woodward,
yeah,
sorry.
Woodley's the group.
In your bid, you say you're going to pull a piece out, put a new piece in. Would you be using the boardwalk as a platform for construction equipment?
Yep, so our thought process was to maintain the hill in its original shape as best as possible. We didn't want any heavy equipment going down it. We also didn't want to risk the damage of any susceptible trees or surrounding trees. So when I met out there with the helical, here installed as a contractor, we discussed that we would go through the boardwalk and take out sections along the boardwalk and drive our helical piles through the boardwalk, the existing boardwalk, and then remove the old sections and rebuild on top of that. That would stop us from bringing down any heavy equipment. And we were actually able to meet with a crane company, and we're going to be able to reach out over some of the bluff in 2 different spots, and pull our garbage and then place the new material in there, which also reduces our labor costs for transversing the hill.
So you wouldn't actually be working, having any heavy equipment or anything on it, like a new section of the boardwalk?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
That's my concern with that process.
I have a question, with the foundation, so you're thinking, Chuck, right?
Yes.
Okay, you're thinking about, you're using the helical piles,
Yes.
and John, what were you, because I saw helical piles, both, okay, so a combination of the two.
Can you describe what you told him about how you think you do it?
We're looking at using concrete on the main slopes with helicals for the platform and the lower walkway.
And your sub on that, I was looking up the subs, is actually, it had a gentleman's name that I've now forgotten, RHA, for your helical piles, but they also own Northern Michigan helical piles, correct?
Yeah.
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 Yep. Okay. I also had a question about the timing in terms of finishing. One thought they maybe could be done by June, and one thought that they could get part of it done in the summertime. So I'm curious where we are with that.
Yeah, part of that is when we put in the bid documents, because we generally try to avoid construction in the summer. When we bid these documents, when we put these documents out there, like the specs, we say that there will be no construction between, I think it's like late June or early. To see it done sooner. So if council's willing to let construction happen in the summer, we can do that. Shouldn't be a problem.
So I guess my question would be for both of them, both of you guys, when do you think you could get it done? I mean, if we make a decision soon, what's your timeline? Either one, just.
I'm all for it to start in March and be done by June.
Okay.
I would be midsummer.
Okay. As long as we let you work through the summer. I mean, as long as we remove that stipulation.
Being realistic with
Yeah.
how things work, yeah.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. I think starting in March and getting done by June is, with the timeline given, is not reachable. Early
But
fall.
both of you are saying by fall, at least we would have it.
100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I ask Chuck a question?
You can ask
Us?
the council and the council can decide if they want to.
All right. Council, would you please ask Chuck? I would, maybe this is actually a Joe question. I was reading the soils report, and when they were augering to take the samples, they got stopped like at 4 or 5 feet down just because of the hard layer of gravel and such. would you ask Chuck if he's not taking heavy equipment on the hill? I think normally don't they use like an auger on a skid steer to drive the piles? And so if you're not using heavy equipment, what can you use that would have enough force to get through that?
Joe, do you have thoughts on that first before we turn to Chuck?
I think if you have one pile that maybe goes down 6.5 feet instead of 8 feet, there's enough other piles nearby that I think you'd be fine. What we're trying to do is have this not sink down in. So if you run into something like that, you don't really have the risk of it settling down because you've basically run into a solid surface.
But how do you drive? Dan's question was, how do you drive them in
Yeah.
without heavy equipment?
Hydraulics.
Joe,
Yeah,
did you?
so it is just a hydraulic cart that's attached, you know, so we have a man operated auger. Similar to ice fishing or coastal digger, that goes on the hydraulic, the helical pile. And then that's connected to hydraulic pumps that are just remote. They're still in our vicinity, but they don't weigh what a skid loader weighs, 10,000 pounds. They weigh hundreds of pounds.
Joe, I know the current boardwalk, we're having problems with the lateral movement because of the concrete foundation. Is that gonna be a continued problem or?
I don't anticipate it. The failure we have now with the concrete foundation is sometimes just a couple of cement blocks. It's what we're proposing is a sonotube that's, I believe, 16 inches diameter and 4 feet deep, of which almost all of it's buried. So yeah, you've got an existing concrete base now, but it's not anything like what we're proposing.
Okay.
And I think he said there was some cross bracing that should help with that. Move side to side.
Yeah, if you remember from the pictures, we just have some cinder blocks holding up some parts of it. Yeah, that's different kind of concrete.
Okay.
I ask one more question. Or of council to answer. I'm just thinking about the pitch on that hill. It's like 1-on-1 or even greater, right? Like, would you be inclined to, sink the supports deeper because you're not on a flat surface and you're on a hill? Like, it seems like the lateral force trying to push out, and then there's not, with it being on a slope, it seems like maybe it'd be safer to go deeper.
That's one of the reasons for the requirement of having it 8 foot deep. And these are fairly good sized helical piles. They're, I believe, 2.5 inch diameter.
So that's helical. What if they go concrete then? That wouldn't be 8 feet deep.
The concrete would not be as deep, but you were kind of offsetting that with the amount of mass that's there.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else?
Well, I think this is hard. This is so close. But one thing I feel like I need to say, I think Chuck, both the bids obviously are well done, from what I can tell. I'm not the expert in that world. I have a little concern with Chuck's company being very new. And Cups Company have been around a long time. That's a little bit of a concern just for me in terms of accountability and, those kinds of things. So I feel like I have to put that out there. I think both of them did a great job on the bids, and I also value the scoring system of the staff who does a lot of work to come up with the scores. That's their job, is to make sure they've done all their homework. So that's where I am with it.
Happy with both quotes. I like the lower price one better, but I think staff put a lot of work into this, and I'm happy with their opinion to go with the Cups Masonry. Willing to make a motion that we award the bid to Cups Masonry.
I'll second it.
Nancy Rondell,
Yes.
Matt Boudreaux,
Yeah.
Jamie Melky,
Yes.
motion carried.
But I do appreciate all the work on all parts. It is good. I'll put a lot of work into it.
All right, moving on.
My
Thanks,
bad,
Joe.
John. You can come back now, John.
No,
You're
I can't.
Not yet.
Nice.
Chuck, and I'd like to thank you for putting in a bid and
Yeah.
and being here to
Absolutely.
represent yourself, and
Yes.
hopefully we haven't seen the last of it.
Yeah.
Appreciate all your work to put it together. Absolutely.
Yep.
3B, sidewalk bids evaluation selection. Every year, we replace and repair about $25,000 estimated worth of sidewalk. We don't know where that's gonna end up based on the year. This year, we were looking at a section on East Bluff, just east of State Street on the north side of Bluff Drive, about 800 square feet. We put this out to bid. We only had one bidder, it's Cups Masonry. We also should note that the DDA is also earmarking some DDA funds annually for fixing sidewalks in the downtown district. We've had some complaints and concerns about sidewalks in the CBD, so they'll be utilizing some of their money for sidewalks down there. So while we can continue utilizing some of our street fund sidewalk money for sidewalks in the rest of town, so. And Nick, I don't know if I'm right in saying this, though, our millage, I think we basically said 10% would be directed toward sidewalks, and 10% is now probably more than $25,000.
Yes, pedestrian walkways, we try to follow the state of Michigan guidelines. We get money from the state for our roads. And they like to see 10% of revenue spent on pedestrian walkway, whether it be boardwalk or sidewalks primarily. So it's just a good rule of thumb, and I think just by rough calculations, it's probably gonna be closer to, instead of 27,000, more like 33,000 going forward, if not a little more. Depending on taxable values, and that will fluctuate as things change, but right now it'll probably be a little more than 30.
That's huge. Good.
So going forward, we'll, and Lucas knows this, we'll try to, it's really hard to estimate exactly, what the bids are gonna come back in, so we try to get think what $25,000 worth will be. Each project's different, but the bid came from Cups at $22,095, so a little under, so.
There's extra there. Can I go to the boardwalks? I'm serious. I mean, if it goes to 30,000 and we're doing 22,000 worth of sidewalks, is that a possibility?
It could.
Fall under, okay.
It could. We were trying, like I said, we were trying to aim to keep the boardwalk in the general fund. But it could, if we need to, we're not there with fundraising, we'll take from.
Yes, it may be. I mean, and we can. They like to see street money stay in the streets, but with that caveat about the 10% for pedestrian walkways, we can justify a connection of two series of sidewalks. So, yes.
So given that Cups was the only bidder for this, there's not a choice to be made. So unless you guys want to go back, policy says, we can get up to 2 bids for those that are under $40,000 if you want to try to do it, but I think it'll just delay.
When he's below.
He's below the-
spend anyway, so. You need a motion?
Yeah. we'll need a mo- yeah, we need-
I'll make a motion that we award the sidewalk bid to Cups Masonry.
I'll second.
Okay, Nancy Rondell.
Yes.
Matt Boudreaux, Jamie Melky.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Right. Moving on to 3C, spending more money.
Just
Now you gotta go back.
All right, so Kyle can explain a little bit more, but just basically our furnaces in our police department have died. And the furnace in the garage no longer works, and the furnace in the building is barely working if at all. It's,
The one in the garage is not working, and one inside. We actually have 3 furnaces inside, one upstairs and 2 downstairs. And one of them, we had it inspected, and one of the ones downstairs has a leak in it. It's leaking water, and there's some issues with it, and the gentleman says we need to, from McGregor said we need to replace it, and Ballard's looked at it as well and said the same thing.
yeah, and we've got quotes both from Ballard's and McGregor. At the time I wrote this memo, which was Thursday and Friday, McGregor didn't get back to us yet with their quote for the garage furnace. They got that quote, and we received that quote, and it's actually $9,000 just for the garage furnace. So for both furnaces combined from McGregor, if we went with their cheapest building furnace plus the garage, it would be about $14,500. For Ballard's combined, it's about $9,600. So in our mind, it's comparing apples to apples, it's to go with Ballard's. This is the $10,000 or so roughly that this is gonna cost us, would be coming probably out of our, well, it will be coming out of our general fund. So it'd be that $100,000 surplus we were expecting. It could be more, it could be less, we don't know until we get the taxes for the year, but using that extra surplus money. So we do have the surplus revenue money. And we did have the police millage, the public safety millage pass, and this is a good example of that money where it could go. So, but that's where we're at. I would recommend going with Ballard's for both furnaces. Kyle, if there's anything else you want to say, you guys are gonna take better care of your furnaces.
Par for the course. We got a printer on the fridge at home. My something went bad last week, so it's like money's flying over, but it's all fixable.
You want to open it up to any public comment?
Yeah, we'll see if there's any public comment.
Talk about
Kyle's
prices. Yeah.
hold hands. Well,
Obviously, we gotta fix it.
yeah.
Oh, I just had a Kathy Macho, Sergeant Street question, maybe Nick or Victor can answer, is sorry, I'm having a bad moment.
Millage.
No, how does this relate? We're talking later about the replacement fund. This would be for the,
These are the kind of things that we're talking about, infrastructure.
thank you.
Our roof will be $100,000 next go around, so I'm just trying to think a little bit longer term, so we have the cash flow to.
Yeah, when we'll get to that section, but we're trying to distinguish between what are our normal operating expenses versus what are capital improvements, which aren't your regular annual. And this is one of those things where it might every 10, 15, 20 years, something like this might happen.
Sure.
We need to put money aside for that. Thanks, good question.
Similar to the chiller here. I mean, it seems like the cycle's going right.
Yeah, they're about the same old,
Yep.
yeah, about 15, 16 years old, 20 years old.
We're at 20 this year.
Time to replace it.
Oh, he just spent $60,000 on 1 year, so we might as well give Kyle $10,000.
We need a motion.
Motion to approve Ballard's.
I'll make a motion to approve Ballard's.
I'll second it.
John Cups.
Yes.
Nancy Rondell.
Yes.
Jamie Melky.
Yes.
Matt Bogira.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Next up is Chief Knight, who will be presenting the annual police report for 2022.
7 minutes and 36 seconds.
No, less than 3, you're buzzing you.
All right, with a taser. No, Victor's got, we'll go to page 2. Staffing purposes. Top of page 2. Been my goal since I've been here to run covers 24/7, 365 days a year. And for the 5th year, we've done that with minimal amount of overtime. I take pride in the fact that the guys adjust their schedules the way they do, and I try to fill in the gap. Example, tonight I'm working till 6 in the morning to try to save the city and the taxpayers some money. So, and then if you look at the end report, if you probably, I have our staff members, the data hire, and we have a good, from young officers to Josh and I are, been here for, Josh has been here for a while, but I feel like we have a good variety of age. The youth, they bring a lot of energy to our department and some new ideas. And then, Josh and Tyler bring that. They've been here for a while. Tyler's only been an officer for 3 years, 4 years. He's from here, so he gives that good variety. Moving down to the workload at the very bottom there, in 2022, we completed 383 reports. I've been every year trying to decrease the amount of reports that we write. And it sounds like it's bad. We still do reports on the things that we need to, like any type of crime, like larceny crime or anything like that. But by reducing the amount of reports, we're increasing the amount of time that we can walk downtown or that we patrol, and I'll show that later. The other thing is in the nature of events, which is the next paragraph right there. If you look at, we respond to 911 hang up, we assist citizens, extra patrol, foot patrol, found property, intrusion alarms. For 2022, we had 11,900 of those events. Compared to in 2017, we had 4,441. So we've over doubled that. I think we're probably at a plateau with those. That's like if an officer goes downtown and checks out a foot patrol, that's called one of those nature events. If we get, tonight I was up in the home park and we had an open door up there. That's a nature event. If we get sent to a larceny or a found property, that's a nature event. So all those combined, we respond to 11,900 events for nature. The next thing down is areas of significant, our foot patrols. And this year we were down a little bit from the previous year. We had 710 foot patrols. It sort of concerned me. I like to get downtown and walk. So that's one of the things that we're going to address compared to 1,001 in 2021. But on the flip side of that, we had 4,615 property checks. We're getting out, checking properties or the bathrooms or something like that. And that was significantly increased from 2,856 last year. So I'm proud of that number. The guys are getting out and doing those. And then we had foot patrol or public relations. We had 492 this last year, and that was up from the previous year where we had 276. That's getting into school. Sorry, I'm doing them just in case they're calling me. So that's I'm proud of that number. And then as I spoke earlier about reducing the amount of reports we write, if you go to our mileage, this last year at $3 a gallon is not the smartest thing, but we drove 90,000 miles. And if you see like that 90,000 miles compared to in 2017, we drove 43,000 miles. So we've doubled that amount of time that we're in the cars patrolling the streets. And to me, that's important. Being seen, being out there, being interactive with our citizens. And that's a number that I take. The guys have done a great job of increasing that. So we're not sitting in the office doing reports, we're out patrolling. On to the next page, trying to cut my time here, sorry. Traffic citations, if you look, we wrote 179 traffic citations this last year, out from 129 the previous year. I think our newer officers has helped that a little bit. There's that fine balance of being effective, but not making our citizens angry. And so I think that we found that balance. I don't get any complaints about, periodically saying, well, why did you get a ticket for this? Or why did I get a ticket for that? But as far as how the officers treat people that they come in contact with and traffic stuff, I feel they're doing a really good job. I review our body cameras just to see how that interaction goes. And it gives me a good idea of that interaction between who we stop, and I don't see any negative. I mean, most of the time, especially with like the one-way, people know what they're doing, and the interaction's not positive, but they take their citation. They're not upset with us. And then the operating while impaired, see, we went up for last year from 1 to this year. 2 years ago, we had 1. This last year we had 7, but the majority of those were people that they sort of drew attention to themselves, whether they crashed or they did something really obvious. We're not out. I shouldn't say this, like we could get a lot more if we really wanted to. There's that fine balance there as well. So I feel like the officers are doing a really good job of that. Down to the crimes. The one thing that I noticed was our assaults were up quite a bit. We went from 4 in 2021 to 8 in 2022. And then, but our frauds went down from 5 the previous year to 2 last year. So all in all, it's pretty much much consistent. When I talk to some of my friends that are chiefs elsewhere, they're like, I don't hate to say it, they laugh at our stats because like, that's all the crime you got. So I'm proud of that number, you know, I think those visible patrols help us a lot. On to the next page about parking. The top line there in 2021, we wrote 779 3 and 4 hour parking. This last year, we only wrote 300. And a lot of that's to do with chalking. The inability of us to not, or the inability not to chalk has made a big influence on that. This year, one of my goals is to get that monitoring system where it'll hopefully I don't want to write tickets, but I just want enforcement. I want to stop people from parking downtown all day. The other thing that if you look at we went from 28 vehicles out trailers in Ford Park down to 4. And a lot of that was just education. Once we got the message out that we were going to write the tickets, I think that that's why that number reduced. But all in all, our bottom line, we wrote 578 parking tickets last year. We reduced it by half, you know, but it is what it is with the amount of chalking that we couldn't do. Next one is non-criminal complaints. And I highlighted it here. While other agencies are getting away from being a full service agency, we continue to do these services. Lockouts, funeral escorts, property checks, like unlocking the bathrooms, putting the sawhorses out for the farmers, different things like that. Some agencies are getting away from that. They're strictly sticking to police work. And I'm proud of the fact that we'll still do that. And when you read through this at home, just look at all those numbers. They're pretty much consistent with the previous years. Besides property checks is up quite a bit. And then the last thing here is our training. And the one thing that I've tried to do with training is train our officers to train us. Because in the past, we've had to send like 6 guys to Great Gaylord or Grayling for training. Now we have, for example, we have a taser instructor. We have an OC spray instructor. We have our own firearms instructors. So over the last 3 years, we spent a lot of money in training, but a lot of that was train the trainer money. So that now we have somebody in-house that can train us. We have a speed measurement guy for like radar. So we can sort of almost cover everything that we need to train each other with instead of outsourcing it, which saves us time and overtime as far as traveling like Grayling. Marine Patrol, pretty much the same as the previous years. We were on the water 58 times last year. This year I will be up because we'll have that full-time Marine Patrol officer. The only thing of that was that we had those 2 serious boating crashes this summer. One was outside of our sort of jurisdiction. The other one was in our jurisdiction. One was over at Bayview. Down to accomplishments for 2022. We're continuing to be accredited by the National Credits CALIA, and we passed our offsite. We increased our patrol time, which I wanted to do. We increased the amount of traffic citations. We've maintained a level of reportable crimes like larcenies and those. It's been pretty consistent. Our school resource officers started, and that's been going great. I talked to the principals, I talked to the kids. It was neat because I was with Tyler Swiss at downtown. Him and I were walking, and one of the kids came up and said, Officer Swiss, and that was that connection. And he's doing a really good job. He's in the schools a lot, and I appreciate your support in that because I think it's a big hit. The only bad thing, we started it in April. And they put a grant out for school resource officers, but you couldn't have started it until after August. So we missed out on the grant. We applied anyways, the school applied for it, but we missed out on that opportunity. Our property checks increased. We purchased our new tasers, which is desperately needed. We got everybody trained in those. We got a new patrol car. And the last thing was we provided training to select officers so they could train our remaining officers. And that's worked very well. Our goals for 2022 is to sustain current traffic enforcement. And I think we'll be able to do that with the officers that we have. The youth that are purchasing puniforms. We're in the process of doing that. I'm actually going to a conference tomorrow, and we've got a sort of new patch that's going to mirror the city logo. It's going to be identical to the city logo, and we're going to go to blue uniform, and it'll be with the outer vest carriers. I'll bring one in, and you'll be able to see it. And then explore the means to enforce parking, which is going to be a big thing this year, and then continue to explore methods to keep our in-house training, and then purchase our new computers. So now go back to the very first page at the bottom, and this is one of my beliefs is the 3 C's: commitment, compassion, and community oriented. And that's what I try to have everybody in our department do, is to be compassionate to the people that we come in contact with, whether it's downtown and it's visitors or one of our guests, and also to have a commitment to our department. And I feel like a lot of people, Oski County, we have the cream. I feel that we have the cream of the crop here. We have a really good group of officers. I explained it as we got them. We got one from Grand Traverse County, we got one from Emmett County, we got one from the tribe. They want to come here and work, and I'm very happy that there's not one of them that I wouldn't trade anybody. Like, I've been in this for 34 years, like, as an administrator, say, oh, we all have those, some of those employees where I'll trade him for you, or I'll trade him for you. There's nobody here that I love every one of our guys, and I think they do an outstanding job. So, and if anybody ever sees any part of those that we're not upholding those 3 Cs, just get a hold of me and say, hey, I don't think you're doing this, or we need to. We've had some in the discussions before, so I'm not opposed to listening to anybody and trying new things. So, but I greatly appreciate everybody's support. So I take pride in this place, and everybody that works there. One of our buddies has hired the leaders. Like, a good friend of mine is a Battle Creek officer. He lost his pay a couple of weeks ago, and we gave him a little gift today, and he's like, you guys are the best. And every one of those guys over there has compassion for the city, even though they might not live in the city, like, they care about what's going on here. So, and that's not everywhere. It's not just a job to them. It's a way of life. So that's, thank you.
Well, thanks to you.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. Love to have Chief Knight with us. Makes my job easier. But council, you have any questions about his goals or past accomplishments? 123. Are we working on that system for the chalk digital? That's an important one.
Yeah. If somebody has a question, I've said this 1,000 times, come and see me and call me, and have Harbor Springs has my cell phone number, and you guys have it too, so just call me.
You know, and comment on, you keep embarrassing me every year as fire chief, so let's,
No,
thank you for all you do. You and your crew do a phenomenal job here, and what a lot of people don't understand is if you weren't here, we'd rely on the county. And what people don't realize, if you weren't here and we had to rely on the county, we'd be in a lot of trouble. So, you know, for the service that you provide to the people and everybody here, it's hands down the best that anybody could ask for. So thank you for everything that you do.
the thing that I like I said about our staff is that where I worked before, Clinton County, like, we had cities or villages the size of Harbor Springs, and most officers started there and went somewhere else. Like, they start at over there, they start at Elsie, and they go to a larger department. We, knock on wood, we have people from larger departments coming here to work, and you don't necessarily, you don't see that anywhere. And so it's a tribute to you guys cared about your employees and compensating them well, and the whole overall relationship.
Well,
I think it has something.
Well, obviously,
Kyle
and I understand what goes on around here, but you know, there's more that goes on around the city than the average person knows. So, you know, what the city police crew does for our area is actually phenomenal. There's a lot of stuff that goes on around here that the average person doesn't know.
I'll say that.
No, I mean, this report is very well done, but you know, I mean, we live in an area, you know, once we were protected, and we're still very well protected, but you know, big city has moved north here, and you know, a lot of things that you read in the paper go on around here, whether you want to choose to believe it or not. So no, hats off to the crew and everybody around. So well done. Thank you.
Yes.
Bonnie called Harbor Springs Chamber. Also, people could come, the police department has been kind enough, our Tuesday coffee and conversation on March 2nd will be at the police station from 8 to 10 in the morning. So, and Johans is providing the donuts. So, but, and it's to get a tour, and people can come and meet the officers, and it'll be a really nice way for people to get a little more face time and say hello and meet people. So join us.
Moving on, I guess, to our Parks and Recreation annual report. Is that Rachel? You're up.
That exciting.
Pretty good.
You gotta remember to clap for Rachel now, since you did.
Yeah.
Isn't that just a great show? Should we get out of the way now?
I thought Rachel,
Yeah.
fewer words.
I'm Rachel Reed, I'm the Parks Director for the City of Harbor Springs. If you have not met me before, quick background in parks. So the City of Harbor Springs hired their first Parks and Recreation Director who's part-time, I believe, in 2020. I came in 2021. The Marina Park Committee was formed and improvements were completed in 2021 to Marina Park downtown next to the Harbor Master Building. We held Fall Fest in 2021, then again in 2022 in Marina Park. And then the Parks and Recreation Board was established in January 2022. Just a quick background. So some big accomplishments for 2022, we completed the Parks and Recreation 5-year master plan that is into the Michigan Department of Natural Resources and is pending approval. They'll come back for any more information they may need. We created a fundraising strategy and materials for the boardwalk and raised, I'm going to correct that now, $390,000 for construction costs. We raised, that says 250, we're closer to 270,000 for the Harbor Springs Skate Park. And that is scheduled with Evergreen for construction in 2023 now. Plus the Harbor Stars Award for Beautification and Architectural Excellence Award went to the Parks Board. Much deserved. Projects for 2022, we hosted 4 winter sledding events at Kiwanis Park, bringing awareness to the park and future projects we may have. We did a lot of surveys. We partnered with the fire department. Chief Cups and his crew were amazing. Bringing the kids up and down the hill, that's obviously the highlight. We held the first annual Easter egg hunt at Thornton Park. We implemented new dog policies for both beaches for geese control and user experience. And again, we hosted the Fall Fest, and Nate Jacks, our skate park manager, hosts the Halloween events there every year, which are very popular. Other 22, we partnered with the Tree Board for Arbor Day Fest at Kiwanis Park, and we worked with the Harbor Commission on new ideas for the Harbor Master Building to conserve costs and preserve green space at Marina Park. And we formed a Friends of the Parks volunteer group to help with beautification activities and events, which have really helped with our events being successful, having volunteers. So big picture and what we've learned over the year. We've learned things. Our top priority is to build a well thought out park system that benefits both the city and the surrounding area. That was a big focus on our parks plan. We are focused on making our parks as nice as possible before adding new amenities. Basically take care of what you have before you add more things to take care of. The city of Harbor Springs is geographically small. We need to prioritize the amenities that are most important. Flexibility is important for many of our gatherings. Marina Park, for instance, we have a lot of different events there. It's important to keep those green spaces open and flexible. Family-oriented spaces, amenities, and events are important to the community. New projects, consideration of alternatives, and weighing pros and cons for good decision-making. Trialing concepts whenever possible, and getting input from residents, because everyone wants to have a voice, especially when it comes to their green space in their community. 2023 projects. We will continue on focusing on fundraising sources for the boardwalk. We'll complete plans and installations of the new skate park. Hopefully that is scheduled for late September, October of 2023. And then complete the installation of the Zorn Beach playground, examine possible amphitheater or pavilion concept at Harborview Park. And I think it's important with the amphitheater pavilion, it's kind of a general comment is in the summer, we're going to look at reevaluating all of our capital improvement projects and see what the community really wants. Maybe there's focus groups, other ways to get public input. Provide input on possible dog park at the Viewlands in a partnership. Assist on planning and funding to the Little Travis Railway extension and the spillway, getting closer downtown, and then begin planning for Kiwanis Park improvements. And small projects, coordinate trimming with DPW at Harborview Park, kind of get a little more open space. That's a really nice area, a really great place to watch the fireworks for 4th of July. Relocate benches and tables with umbrellas where needed. Tree management in partnership with the Tree Board, and possibly add a Game Beach Toy Box at Zorn Park. And something I do want to add to this presentation is I spoke with Lynn Ness, our lifeguard manager, and we have a really nice group of individuals this year for the beach. I'm excited to announce. Yeah. Any questions? No?
Great job.
Good job.
Thank you, Rachel. That was great. Yeah, it's a good recap. Good idea to see where we're going as well. We have a lot, and also I can say that on top of that, we are still fundraising for the skate park as well, so we'll still take donations for that and the boardwalk as well with that. So those are complete, so we'll take what people want to get. All right, moving on. Next topic is EarthCam downtown camera. EarthCam is the company who installed the camera downtown for live Hallmark streaming during the holiday season, when they captured our tree falling down. That was this company, EarthCam, they live stream multiple towns and cities and natural places throughout the world, actually. And I put their website on here just so you can see examples. They would like to continue live streaming year round from our downtown location on a light pole, and they would directly live stream to their website. The streaming is free, but they also offer subscriptions for ad-free viewing. So they are a for-profit, they're a business. This is not a nonprofit. The DDA reviewed this request and they generally saw it as a positive for downtown activity. It has no concerns. We've heard from some residents about the holiday streaming, some concerns about being recorded in a public place, about facial recognition software, et cetera. And we also have some people who feel it will turn Harbor Springs into a more touristy type of town. Generally, though, we receive more favorable comments about the holiday streaming. I don't know about year-round streaming. We haven't heard much feedback except a couple. But as far as the holiday season, I think streaming, most people tended to like that and thought it was pretty neat because it was streaming to Hallmark. We've talked about EarthCam being willing to work with law enforcement to hand over any video coverage in case there's a crime downtown, like the bomb threat that we had 2 years ago. They would also give our police department a kill switch to take down the live stream immediately if there was an emergency, if someone was using the camera for something like with their bomb threat. If there's something that council does agree to, one issue that the company would have to resolve, and I talked with DPW Director Lucas about this, is basically getting power and internet to the camera. Right now, the power is from the holiday lighting, and once those holiday lights come down, the power will only be available when the when the lights come on downtown in the evening. So as the summer progressively gets longer, the days get longer, that might not be till 9, 10 at night. So they'll have to figure out that and a more permanent solution for the internet. I would also, I think if the council would agree to this, there should be a stipulation that Lucas signs off on any of the solutions to supplying power and internet, and there should be a condition that the city council can revoke the approval at any time as we see fit. So that's what I have there. I know EarthCam has been talking with the chamber about it, and so Bonnie's kind of been communicating between EarthCam and the DDA and me on this issue, so, this request. I don't know if there's any first, I guess, public comment first about it, and then we can go to council and discussion.
Yes, sir.
Craig Corvo, eastern suburbs, Pleasant View, Woods Drive. Now, it would still be the same camera position where it is now, looking at the church.
Not 100% necessarily. They know that there'd be the loss of the electricity and have to figure out so I spoke with them today and they said, sorry, is it okay that I'm interjecting this? Sorry. They said that they would be, stop it. They would work with Lucas, with the city. If the camera doesn't necessarily have to be exactly where it is. They said, we don't want it looking at a dumpster, but
it would be on Main Street.
Yeah, that would be their preference, but that's not even, I mean, they said, they'd be willing to work with the city to figure out the electrical and the internet and make it something that works for everyone. So not necessarily.
I think it's great, it's a beautiful shot with the church, but it is a harbor town and nobody sees the harbor on the camera. Unless you do 2 cameras in the split screen, show. Sure, and then another one going down past Graham's house and see a little bit of the water. Okay, that's the name of the town tells it all, but still, there's no water in any of their live cam.
Good spot would be maybe by, I know they want downtown, would be up by where the star is. Overviewing the whole town. It wouldn't be as personal.
there is gonna be new power there too.
Could tap into Tom Graham's
Yeah.
camera.
Yeah, that's the option. I mean, what are they looking for? I mean, before they're here for Hallmark, I mean, Christmas is what it is here. You know, other than that, it's a show. I mean, it's a seasonal show here, so what are they, I mean, what are they gaining or what are we gaining from it?
Well, they're gaining, they have another town they can add to their services, or people can watch live stream of these towns that'll attract viewers. And probably for them.
And we're
they hope
potentially gaining
sales.
another 1,000 people that,
And that's the idea, is I think they talked about in the DDA was that, you know, it's more business, more people coming in potentially. But I don't know, you know, I don't have any
do we need more
numbers.
people here in the summer?
I don't really see.
I mean,
Well, let's still get public comment first.
Bill Molders on the street. Anyway, just sounds to me like it's an uncertain benefit to the city, some work, some expense. There's at least 3 cameras already in place. I'm just not sure what the benefit would be, and maybe we should just spend our resources on other things and focus in other areas. I'm not,
Just to say, we wouldn't be spending money except.
The city would not spend, other than some of Lucas's time,
Yeah,
from what I.
just.
so are we gonna send them an electric bill, you know, or?
Yeah, they would have to top.
So I don't know, benefit doesn't seem significant to the city, and it just seems like extra work and complication, and there are privacy concerns for some residents, so. Not strongly against it, but I just don't really see the benefit.
Anyone else in here would like to comment?
My phone was actually, I used it to look at New Orleans just to see what it looked like. And they actually have volume on theirs, but if you're looking at Bourbon Street, that's why, sorry.
Fourth of July here.
Anyone on Zoom for any public comment?
Yes.
All right, so I didn't make a recommendation for this. I mean, it's really up to council. I'm not, like, I'm kind of in the same camp as Bill. It's not really for or against it. I mean, but there's benefits. There's, in some people's minds, there's drawbacks.
Personally, I like the Hallmark aspect of it. I don't think we need to be a year-round pick-me position here.
I would agree.
There's other webcams you can look at if you really want to see others.
Harbor Springs is really.
Harbor Springs already has,
I would use stream Harbor Springs.
yeah, Harbor Springs already has its mark.
Yeah.
So we don't need to add to it. I like the Hallmark. Winters here are, you know,
The Christmas is special.
yeah, but I don't, we don't need to advertise spring, summer, and fall here.
I think so.
We have enough going on. So I'm all right with keeping the Christmas holiday, but not year round.
I don't see the benefit to the city, in all honesty. Because there are other webcams in town that people can stream onto, and there are some folks that don't really like that idea. I think we all have a lot of other things we have to deal with there. Are more important. I just don't see the benefit to the city for it. I see some potential hassles from it. So
They want to do it at Christmas time.
I think that's fine. It's a special 2-week or whatever it was, I think.
Need a
It
motion?
was about a month.
Yeah, I think that's fine, but you're around.
From tree lighting to the day after Christmas or whatever.
Yeah, I think that's fine. But
If there's consensus, we don't need a motion to reject.
Correct. We just by consensus, no action taken.
Yeah, no action taken.
All right, 3G, boards and commissions handbook review and approve. So the boards and commissions handbook that I put it in here, there were some edits that came in from a couple of council members, and I sent you the updated copy of that. I also have that on the screen here for those edits. We can walk through them if need be, but So part of the redevelopment ready communities certification criteria relates to boards and commissions, the recruitment and expectations. So, our baseline report from January of last year indicated that we had partially met those criteria. But those criteria specifically are, one, that the community has a clear recruitment and appointment process. We have an application, and we've kind of done things certain ways because that's how things have been done, but the goal is to get that in writing and make it a process that councils and city staff can follow going forward for several years and adjust if necessary. And the other one was that we set expectations for our board and commission members. So when they get on the board or commission that they serve on, that they know what's expected of them, they know their responsibilities, they know their role, and the relationship to staff and the relationship to council. So one of these criteria, to satisfy these criteria, we created what a lot of other communities, well, some other communities have, which is a board and commissions handbook. We use several different municipalities' handbooks as a template, and we've basically outlined the process for appointing volunteer members to our boards and also setting expectations for them. And the main components, without going through the entire thing in detail, is one, clarify how a resident can apply to serve on a board and what the appointment process looks like. Detail the relationship, as I mentioned, between the boards and city council, as well as city staff or the city attorney. Outline those board responsibilities. Describe how, give some tips how board members and the chair can hold successful meetings and how they can handle difficult meetings. Explain the role of the public and how to interact with the public to run a smooth meeting, and also introducing some basic Open Meetings Act requirements to them. While the handbook does allow us to satisfy that RRC criteria, I think it's also just beneficial for many other reasons. Like I said, it clarifies and formalizes our appointment procedures. It kind of serves as an introduction packet for those new members coming on board. And it allows us to be more direct and clear about our expectations for board members. And it also allows, as we have new council members involved, as well as we have new staff members, that they understand, what the expectations are and the roles and responsibilities, and so that we don't have to reinvent the wheel every time this happens in a few years. Like I said, we made some edits based on a few comments from some council members. It's 18 pages. It would go on our website. It would also be given to each new member along with their respective bylaws of the board that they're serving on, as well as any other necessary information. So just a few mostly grammatical edits that I had from staff members, and links to where they can find the Open Meetings Act and et cetera. So overall, we spent a couple of meetings at the RRC, and then staff in-house, we also put this together, and I think it serves as a good basic document for prospective and current board members and to utilize. We'd also have a signature page, just so they acknowledge, take a little seriously. Yes, I read this board and commission handbook. I take seriously these responsibilities. I know what I'm getting myself into. It doesn't commit themselves, there's no penalty for doing something that is not there. Those penalties are actually written into the board's bylaws. So if you miss a certain amount of meetings, or if you have conflicts of interest that you don't disclose, those boards' bylaws have the process for how to deal with those circumstances. But this is really just kind of to motivate people to take it. I think most of our board members do take their position seriously, but it's just another thing to just say, this is something it's a little more formal and serious. And we care about our board members and how they interact with the public and other board members and fulfilling their roles. So just if there's first, like Mayor, open up to public comment and then have some discussion.
Public comment on our new handbook.
I'll just, Kathy Moncher, Sergeant Street, as somebody who's only been on one of the boards a short time, a really good idea. Make sure expectations are clear.
I think it's great. I
Yeah.
think it's a really good start. We talked before about some orientation so people knew what the responsibilities were for certain committees, and I think this is a great start for funds. Before they even volunteer to be on, they should take a look at this. So they understand that. I think it's great.
Yeah, it's yeah, well done package. I think it's good. And I like the edits.
Yeah.
Okay, simple edits.
Well, for those that think the RRC doesn't do any good for the city, this is one of those things that does very good for the city. So hard to argue against that, you know, it's bringing everything, you know, up front.
Yeah.
And ties us nothing to Lansing, so, imagine that. Well done.
Yeah, I think it's great. I do. I think it's a really good thing to have.
So we would need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
I'll second.
Matt McGinnis,
Yes.
Nancy Randall.
Yes.
John Cups
Yes.
and Jamie Melky.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Great, thank you. Our last item, or item 3H, is the fund balance policy that we talked about during budget season, that we would create a policy that would basically do two things. One is to establish minimum reserves in our general fund, in case of an emergency, that we have enough funds to keep the city operating for a certain amount of certain timeline, as well as create a repairs and replacement fund, also like a capital improvements fund. We took some sample documents from other municipalities, Clerk Whitaker there, Nick, put it together and thought, you know, try to align those policies with how we do things here and what our goals should be here. And the two separate, basically, funds that we're suggesting that we create, one is that minimum reserves in our general fund balance. It would commit the city to maintaining 9 months worth of operating expenditures in our general fund. This would serve as our emergency operations, in case for some reason our revenues unexpectedly were reduced or delayed, because sometimes there could be a delay in taking in tax revenue, but we still have to pay our bills. Or if our operating expenses suddenly increase for unforeseen reasons. Of course, we would, in that situation, we would also look at where we could trim and cut, but we'd also want to have minimum reserves to continue operations and basic operations. So one of the examples is, our unassigned fund balance is about $2.5 million according to our last audit. Our general fund operating expense for 2023 is approximately $3.2 million. And that's not including our capital A expenses. So that's not including the boardwalk and skate park expenses that we're expecting to pay for. But so this means that we're at about 78% of our operating expenses, which is about 9.4 months. So therefore we have met our minimum. Our goal going forward is to not go below that 9 months. And that's something that we talk to kind of regularly, that we wanted to see between 9 and 12 months, but if 9 months is our minimum, that we're comfortable with that. The second one is creating a repair and replacement fund. So any excess revenues would go into this fund after we reach that minimum of 9 months in operating reserves. We picked a number of $1 million right now because we have a lot of assets and infrastructure that from the boardwalk that we would need to maintain, the roofs on this building, parking lots, furnaces, chillers, there's, carpets in the building. Like there's a lot of things that would come out of our general fund, our fund. Councilmember Leo did send an email saying he'd think it would be good at some point where we, some of our major assets that we actually look at, what it's going to take, how much money it's going to cost to repair those, maintain those, and replace them in the future. So we have a better idea of exactly how much money we would need in this R&R fund. But I think a starting place right now is that. So as part of our annual capital improvements planning and budgeting process, council will determine those repair and replacement projects that should take precedent over others. But in line with our purchasing policy, staff can use monies from this fund for minor repairs, such as if a door or a window broke on a general fund building. Maybe $500, we would use that to replace or repair something. But for those larger ticket items, council would be budgeting. All right, we know we're we're gonna have to replace the roofs in 3 or 4 years. So we're gonna have to start putting that money aside into that until we get to that $1 million mark. And then we'll know how much money we'll have to take away from the funds, so how much we have to replenish it. Well, this is all theoretically, though, assuming that we have surplus funds in our revenue. And I think one of the reasons why we went for the millage is so we could continue funding our increasing costs for public safety and other aspects while still having money to maintain and replace our infrastructure. And so I think we're at a healthy spot right now. I think I have no concerns about where we are with the future going forward. I don't know if Nick, you want to expand on that, but.
No, replacement, it could be a capital project, capital outlay, the language doesn't. One thing to remember is a repair and replacement, that doesn't tie those funds down where you can't say, let's go over here and do the furnace and go over here and do the parking lot. When you narrow it down to, let's set aside $1 million for the boardwalk 25 years from now, that's it. I mean, which is not a bad thing to do, but this gives a little control without strangling council's control over the funds. 9 months is just a comfortable number because that's the kind of time frame when between taxes come. You know, there's 6-7 months where we have no income whatsoever. So it's just nice to have that. And the other thing that kind of goes along with this, especially with our police millage and potentially somewhere down the line, another Headley, it will let people know that, okay, we're saving this 9 months because this is what it takes to operate. But we're going to set this aside knowing that these things are going to need to happen over time so that people are just more aware of where their money's going instead of building up a fund balance of, 2 years worth of expenditures. No, we're going to set aside that money for things like the boardwalk, things like the chiller and Kyle's little chilly building over there, but just makes people more conscious of where their money's going and why.
Yeah, and that's
Something that can be tailored, and the $1 million was just a number to start with. And then, years down the line after probably we're all gone, just somebody else can expand on it to add specific items or up the ante to 2 million, who knows?
I think it will really emphasize during budgeting season, when we get to that point, to make a distinction, that's kind of what Nick was getting to, between what is our operating expenses and what are our capital expenses. Because when right now, the way we do the budget, this year it might be $4 million, next year it might be $3 million. And why is our budget, changing so, sporadically? One year it's low, one year it's high. And part of that is specifically because some years we're including our capital expenditures as part of operating expenditures, but they shouldn't really be considered operating their capital. So this helps us make that distinction between capital and your basic annual operating costs. So.
And we can better then track, even look at the budget and say, okay, our operating expenses, even though we've added no new services, no new parks, no new whatever, they're creeping up so that we don't have what we've had just recently where we haven't increased anything except expenses for 15 years. So it'll be a little more apparent to future council and staff to keep an eye on that. And the auditors like to have these kind of policies.
Don't think so.
Public comment on our fund balance thing?
So excited. Are you laughing?
No.
Just a quick question. Sure. How does this 9 months fit with recommendations from, I don't know, auditors, state agencies? I was thinking it was more like a year.
Well, no, there's different agencies that request, a lot of it has to deal with bond ratings. I think the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, depending on the type of fund, will say anywhere from 10 to 40% of 1 year's.
Oh.
So 9 months works 6 to 12 months has just always been a broad general thing for, in the governmental world for as long as I've been at it. And it makes sense here just because of the timing of our income. We don't have, you know, tons of money coming in from other places that supplement this general fund except for property taxes. And that's kind of on a 6, 8, 9 month cycle when the money flows, so. It's just a comfortable cushion knowing that you can get through a billing cycle for property taxes without building exorbitant fund balance, hoarding taxpayer dollars. It's just money to operate for that period of time.
Okay. And I'll go off of that, two things, what Nick said about bond rating, right? So we probably gonna bond for our electric substation project if that goes through, right? If we, you know, it might take a couple of years, but we'll have to bond for that. And if we only had 3 months or 2 months in our reserves, we might get a lower bond, probably would get a lower bond rating than if we had 8, 9 months in reserves.
Yeah, because even though the bond councils and all revenue stops, you don't have enough money to finish the year. That's not where we want to
The
be.
second important thing to remember is why I have been pushing these policies with Nick a little bit, or wanting these policies, is because we don't have the flexibility to raise our millage rate, right? Because of the Henley. So if we ran a situation where we needed to raise $500,000 for something, we'd have to go back to the voters and vote for it. So that's much more difficult than if you have a savings account to already prepare for that, because we can't raise our millage up, or we only can lower our millage rate. So it's, if we plan for the future by saving money and putting money aside for our R&R fund, as well as having a minimum 9 months balance in our operating reserves, it makes it easier for us to go for some needed projects and needed repairs and needed replacements, needed services. But if, you know, if we had the flexibility to say, hey, we could raise our millage rate from 6 to 7 the next year to pay for something and then put that millage rate back down, maybe our reserves, or in a reserves fund wouldn't need to be as high. But since we're in that situation, it just makes sense to have something that guarantee that we can continue with operations and maintain infrastructure, because we don't have that flexibility.
Good. We're happy here. Yeah, I'll make a motion that we approve the.
I'll second.
Nancy Rondell,
Yes.
Jamie Melky,
Yes.
Matt Bogira,
Yes.
John Cox.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Do you want to say DPW Director Lucas did note that I forgot to make that 2023, it says 203, we're not in the year 203 AD. We're in 2023, so.
Yeah, I missed that.
Look at that first paragraph, I still think it sounds to me like there's a couple typos in there, I don't think it really matters. Under 1A, nope, the other page.
Oh, that's our memo, that's
doesn't matter.
that's not what
Okay.
we're approving, we're just approving the actual policy.
Okay,
Yeah, so I did catch those.
that's okay, I just, it wasn't making sense, that's fine. No, it's in there.
All right, go into the city manager report and then we can go on to the rest of the meeting, but short-term rental licenses, we are capped out. We have had 61 licenses in the R1 and AR districts to issue. And 6 of those chose not to renew by February 1st. We had 6 new people from those, or new applicants from those districts apply. And so now there are no licenses available for the R1 and AR districts for 2023, no new ones additionally.
But we don't have a
however,
wait list, do we? We don't have other people waiting on them, do we?
no,
So
but
that was a pretty good number then.
yeah,
And how do we
Okay.
police the ones going forward
well,
that
that's.
are probably operating?
Well, that's gonna be down to Harmari. We do have a list of former license holders, right? And so we're checking on those on the Harmari is checking those to see if they're operating, and we will send out a letter immediately. And then if they're operating, we send out our zoning or police officer and tell them they can't operate. But we have to first figure out who's doing that.
Yeah.
But we're still also, just a reminder, unlimited, I say, there's only so many homes in the other districts, but anyone can still apply for other short-term rental licenses in those other zoning districts at this time. So we're at 93, I think, total right now for the city, which is one or two more maybe than last year that we officially had, not maybe one more than last year. So we're on par for that.
It's just the current district that we're concerned with, not
Okay.
necessarily the other areas, so.
Right, yeah.
You know, that's,
We have received some complaints and concerns about conditions of sidewalks in downtown, such as with ice and snow. Chief Knight followed up on some of those. We just want to remind property owners that they are responsible in the CBD of maintaining the sidewalk in front of their business. If not, if we've been trying to communicate as we normally do, that it's their responsibility, but if the problem persists, the city will clean the sidewalk and we will send them the bill. So that's just something to remind the businesses downtown that they need to keep that safe for our visitors and people going into stores and shops downtown. Text My Gov, been talking about it. It's now in place. So this is where you can text the city. There's a city number there, 525-3720-22. By texting the number, you can get answers to basic questions such as where's the budget on the website or how do I apply for a zoning permit. It's good for people on the weekends if they, no one's at City Hall or they just, having trouble. Maybe texting the line will help them out. You also can report issues this way. So if you saw a pothole, you can just text pothole at what intersection and DPW will get that. Or if there's a non-emergency thing that the police or anyone else can handle. We also will use this for pushing out notifications that aren't emergency notifications. So we want to say, hey, there's an event downtown. You can sign up to get notifications that maybe a street's closed or maybe there's something going on or there's an important meeting. We haven't really advertised this yet, really. I mean, we're just going out on a light rollout to make sure we figure out any kinks or any issues that we have with it. But we'll be putting out there. There'll be advertisements that people can use it. It's just another means of communication, other means of people to get access to information. And it's not gonna be perfect to start out with, but we'll eventually get there. So trying to give the public more opportunities.
real quick, before you
Yeah.
venture, so on the sidewalk issue, because the way the winter's been, seem to be some bigger issues with the freeze thaw factor that we're having with some of these things. So some of our businesses, obviously, within the city are not as open as others.
Yeah.
Let's say, so what is the process with some of these that are, where you got people that are open, 6-7 days out of the week versus some that are only operating, are they even open?
So
Kind of thing. So what is our
Here's-
process with some of that
Here, I'll
stuff?
tell you what our process is, practice generally versus what the code says. The code says they have 12 hours to clean their snow and remove the snow and ice from in front of their building, or else the city will come do it and send them the fee. Right now, we kind of more communication, we'll go out there, we'll remind them, we'll have a phone call and someone from the police department will go there and tell them, hey, you haven't done this. And sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. And the people who are away are supposed to have someone, maintain that for them and do it. But if they don't, we'll have to get more serious and maybe act faster.
I guess that's becoming my point. I think we've kind of gotten to be a little lenient with some of the people that have been here forever and they just don't give a shit. So, I mean, are we getting to the point where we gotta kind of knuckle down on some of the people on Main Street and some of the side streets that don't take care of their shit? I mean,
That's where we're gonna be, because
we're getting to the point where, we have businesses that are obviously want to be open. And then we have some that are only here for June, July and August. And we seem to be having issues in front of those businesses that aren't necessarily open. So
I would think a next step along those lines, I think the ultimate, the way the charter, the code said, is that the onus is on the property owner, regardless of whose business storefront is
right,
there.
but it's coming back on the city, so.
Right, but we're not, maybe the next step would be to, instead of calling down to, I don't know, Pearson's or wherever and saying you're not doing this, go to the owner of the building.
Right.
Chief,
That's what I-
let's,
that's what I did. But there was actually one of the businesses that was open 5 days or 6 days a week. That was last week when I made my trip downtown. I mean, they were there. And I said, hey, you need to take care of this. And the code says they have to have a walkable path. They don't have to say they have to have the whole sidewalk cleared. So we blow down there. And the one that we had a complaint was closed, is closed for the season, but they had a walkable path. But the problem is that if you get this much snow, then there's this much ice underneath that snow.
Right.
They still had a walkable path, so, but it's gonna come down to, I think, where we're gonna have to just have the DPW go down there, solve it, take care of it, put it on their bill, and that will maybe send a message. That's what St. John's, we did it, cost a guy over $1,000.
No, I mean, we're getting to that point where, no, I mean, we've obviously done what we've done here for decades, but we're getting to the point where we got some people coming through town that wanna, complain about everything, so I just didn't know what the process
That's what
was.
we're doing. I went down last week and walked downtown and made contact with the business owners.
But you got, obviously, you got it covered.
Well, we're trying.
No, I mean, that's just,
Yeah.
it's where we're at.
It's some people, businesses, like the bank spend, I'm sure they spend a fortune. They have a lot of sidewalk.
There's a lot of businesses that spend a fortune to do whatever,
And it
but
looks awesome every day,
Yep.
when I work, if it snowed tonight, they'd be down there at 5 this morning doing
again, there's a handful of people that are only here for 3 months out of the year,
it.
and
Yep,
they don't care.
right.
So it's then on the business owner, the property owner, I mean, whether that's.
That's not a property owner. And the positive thing is, a lot of businesses that are only open like 3 months a year, is local property owners. It's not, they don't own that business, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or, yeah.
What I-
Crabs owns a fair amount of the businesses, and even though it might be a business downtown that's open 3 months, Crabs owns the building.
Well, it's coming down to the point where we just need to say, enough's enough, here, this is what it costs. Done.
What I hear is a recommendation to the EA to have a CIP project to put heated sidewalks downtown.
Well, yeah.
One way to.
No.
Well,
No,
for
but
discussion.
we're aware of it and we, just kind of like with the short-term rentals enforcement of some nuisance issues, we cut down our process from 2 to 3 letters to 1 letter and enforcement. That's something similar we could do here is, 1 warning and you guys know the code, you're responsible.
Well, it's dangerous.
Yeah.
Somebody's gonna get hurt.
Yeah, so we can always get less lenient. That's basically it, a few meetings here and there. I should just remind, we had a couple planning commission meetings. One special one to discuss zoning code update and planning commission is going to further explore certain zoning code topics such as collapsing zoning districts, character districts and others. To learn more about these topics before they dive into further editing or updating the zoning code. So that's one thing. We also at the planning commission held an organizational meeting, elected a chair, et cetera, and are discussing the short-term rentals. At the next planning commission meeting, they'll be discussing a memo from City Attorney Raymer on some of the outstanding, court cases related to short-term rentals and how that may or may not impact what the city can and can't do with short-term rentals. And so that's there. The tree board is reviewing tree species to replace the pine trees on Main Street. We've received maybe 4 or 5, a handful of people who understood the need for the project, but were concerned about some of the species that were chosen. Because in some states they're considered invasive species. So we're gonna go back to the tree board and just look at those species again. We do have about 4 or 5 outstanding tree donations. I look back at our tree donation list, the $600 tree donations. We have about 4 or 5 outstanding that we haven't planted yet. So I imagine we could use those tree donations as part of our campaign to replant trees there. So that's what's going on in town. There's a few meetings. We did talk, Margot, the DDA director, and I talked with the county administrator about the downtown TIF capture. It didn't seem like there was a whole lot of room for discussion there. So we had some other meetings. Also did an interview, which has turned into 3 phone calls with WCMU about short-term rentals, trying to give them the objective information about what's been going on in Harbor Springs. So I'm sure you might be able to expect some sort of programmer from that radio station on short-term rentals. Harbor Springs might be highlighted.
With
So,
the TIF, was that, I mean, are they gonna give us money or not give us money?
so basically, when I went and spoke with the county administrator, the basic gist of the conversation was that, there's no change on their position that they don't have
Don't know what's
to
in it.
give us money, yes,
Imagine
so.
Okay.
There is a new, there are 4 new county commissioners. I don't, from my sense from the county administrator was, he doesn't think their opinions would change, so,
No, they won't.
so, well, we're still working on that. We are getting a legal opinion about, what we can and can't, what our, options are and how strong our case is. And so that'll be presented to DDA when we have that opinion, and then to the council if the DDA and our council would want to pursue this any further. So, so we're waiting for that. And that's all I have. I guess we're on council old and new business. Unless you have any other questions about what's going on.
No.
Yeah, back to snow removal. I was just, there are some places in town, specifically Bay Street, that I just wondered why that it's not plowed. It's one of the most walked streets because of the view, and it's also still a high traffic area, and there's just lots of places that people have to walk in the road that if the city plowed that like they plowed the rest of town, it would prevent that.
Some of the sidewalk, right?
Yeah, the sidewalk. Like specifically from Zorn to Hankey and then in front of Irish and Wallstrom.
Talked to Jamie about this later. We do earlier a little bit, and we do get occasionally each year people throughout town who want to know why we're not plowing certain sidewalks. And we could have at the next council, because I only have maybe one item on the next agenda item on the next council meeting so far. Could have maybe a little presentation on what we do, why we do it, and what council thinks would be a good policy going forward. It'd be good to hear from Lucas, DPW director, about how they do their operations and what it takes for them to do certain things. If maybe one street's not an issue, but
Probably,
yeah.
Jamie and I've talked a little bit about it. I mean, I think it'd be a good idea. I think times have changed from what the city was 20 some years ago to what it is today. Obviously with COVID and all the people that are around here, there's much more people using our streets and sidewalks and everything else. So, I mean, if there's not a plan, it probably wouldn't be a bad idea to have a plan.
Yeah. We don't have
Once-
anything written. How
Well, that's what I'm
yeah.
saying, if there's not something, maybe we should look at that and just see.
But yeah, I'll bring at the next. meeting.
Compare, obviously our uptown district to downtown and whatever. I mean, there's a lot of things that have changed around here over the years. So, kind of get a better idea, maybe some areas you need to pay attention to or not pay attention to. So, yeah, I think it's a good idea.
All right. I'll bring that to the next council. Thanks, Jeremy.
Nope, I'm good.
I'm good. Meeting adjourned. Thank you for coming.